Okay, the RFL has announced that the Women's Super League season and Challenge Cup have been cancelled. They're not going to resume play for the rest of the 2020 season. That is a big blow. Bearing in mind that the RFL obviously went to the government for an emergency loan at the beginning of the pandemic back in April. They received, I believe, a £16 million loan initially, although there'll be more funds available. The RFL obviously, and Rugby League as a whole, has struggled. Now, the plan is for the women's game to resume in 2021, which, fingers crossed, will take place. But Rugby League as a whole, the Toronto Wolfpack haven't returned to play. The Championship and League One haven't returned to play. The Challenge Cup have had teams withdraw over various concerns. So that led to a reformatting of the later stages of the Challenge Cup. Rugby League is a sport that is heavily reliant on fans and attendance. The TV deal isn't great, and the women's game doesn't make a lot of money. So the future of the sport as a whole at grassroots level is at stake, and the women's game is in its infancy in comparison to other women's semi-professional and professional sports on an organised level. And it is concerning, but it's also concerning for other sports in resumption of seasons or resuming play. It is a niche sport, it is a minority sport, and we are seeing concerns from other sports about any kind of resumption to play. Finances are under pressure, and it'll be interesting to see how many of the women's teams come back for next season. It will be interesting to see what state the women's game is in next season. Women's Rugby League is in its infancy. We have seen massive growth in the women's game, but the fact that the RFL had to get a loan from the government to sustain the amateur game and the game at the lower levels is concerning about the state of finances of the sport in this country. And the women's game has been impacted just as heavily as the men's, if not more so. So it'll be interesting to see if how many of the women's teams do compete next season and what state of play the sport is in next season. We don't know if the Toronto Wolfpack, for example, are going to be fielding a team next year. We know there's no promotion and relegation to and from the Super League, Championship and League One. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. This is one of the sports most impacted by the shutdown financially. The finances in Rugby League are precarious at the best of times. A lot of teams do struggle to break even and make money, and only exist because they have wealthy backers constantly pumping money in at a loss. So it'll be interesting to see, next season, if we are allowed fans back in from October, what capacity of stadiums are filled, how many teams do have struggles going forward, and will the Championship and League One resume next season? Will the women's game resume next season? It is a concern, but it also impacts other sports, because other sports will be looking at Rugby League going, well, they're not resuming this season. Do we take the risk as well? British Ice Hockey in the Elite League downwards are not sure if they're going to have a season coming up. So other sports are looking at this and will make their own decisions, but Women's Rugby League not resuming is troubling. Not just for the women's game, but for the men's game as well. If they're deciding that it's not worth the risk, that is a concern for the Championship and League One. And the Wolfpack, we just don't know what's going to happen with them going forward. It'll be interesting to see what happens if the RFL has to seek another loan from the government to ensure the survival of the sport going forward at amateur and semi-pro level. We shall have to wait and see, but for now, that's the decision made by the RFL. The plan is to resume again in March next year, in the 2021 season. But who knows what's going to happen going forward. But thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.